Good morning. I'm Mary Roscoe, and I was a person who answered an email where somebody says, "Hey, I have a request. Would you be willing?" And at that moment, I ought to have shut it. No, I'm just kidding. Miriam had an idea. She thought it would be fun to have a moth Sunday, and she asked me, would I be willing to take it on? And I've never said no to Miriam, so I didn't. The beginning words that Regina shared with us fit perfectly into what we're going to be doing today. We have fellow members in our community who are opening up their lives to us to share their stories. So awakening and transformation is just not about traveling to new places. It's about looking with new eyes. William Wordsworth was a poet who looked at the world with new eyes. So I'm going to ask you now to close your eyes and listen to these words from William Wordsworth called "I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud." I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er the hills, vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze, continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way. They stretched in never-ending line along the margins of a bay. 10,000 I saw at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a shogun company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when o'er my couch I lie, in vacant or peasant mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude, and then my heart with pleasure fills, and dance with the daffodils. Now, I invite you to listen and to relax as David, Stephanie, Ron, Nancy, David, and Mary share with us a story that opened them up to a new experience and ways to look at life. So David is going to be joining us here on the site, and then in between, I believe, Stephanie. Anyways, there's a song in between two of my singers, or two of my talkers. So sit back and enjoy.
Can you unmute? David, can you unmute?
There we go.
There.
Had to find the right button. Let me start by saying I wish I was there in person because I like speaking in person. I'm down here in Indianapolis doing an early Thanksgiving with my three adult children, their wonderful spouses, and my grandchildren. I was basking in the warmth of the love of my family when I discovered they were taking bets as to whether I could speak for just 5 minutes. So if I go long, I'm going to split the pot. When you have an epiphany, you have a moment that changes your life. It comes from joy, a baby, tragedy, a death, or just being on a mountaintop, seeing the sheer beauty of nature. My moment of epiphany came on a forklift in a partially filled factory. I was to understand how I got to that forklift. I'm going to go a little bit of history. I'm going to start with my father, who owned that forklift. My father was born about 100 years ago. So that's a little scary to think how long ago that was. But he was a man of his time. He viewed fatherhood as being the patriarch, primary provider of a nuclear family. We had a big Catholic family, myself, five sisters, and my mother, who they had a home wife. He loved us, but he wasn't like really expressive about it. I only know that he loved us when my mother kept telling me, he really loves you. He tells me all the time, he loves you. So early in our family history, my father worked for others as a salesman. He made a good living, 6 kids, he had to. He then switched career in life to become a banker. He was a banker for a while until he sold, and then he was an unemployed, overqualified, overweight, middle-aged man. My father was very much of an entrepreneurial bent. He's very smart, he's very creative, and worked hard. And so he got the idea from a neighbor who was the chief engineer at the RCA plant in Monticello. They were talking at a social event, and of course the conversation came up, the RCA plant, which made cabinets for entertainment centers. And you remember, you're old enough, and most of us are, an entertainment center with a big piece of furniture with a radio, phonograph, television. And they generated 30 tons of sawdust a day. My father said, "What do you do with it?" "We burn it." And he says, "It seems like you can do something with it besides burning it." And he says, "Well, EPA has asked us to stop incinerating it, so if you can come up with a use for it, it's yours for free." So he investigated the use for sawdust and decided on finally found a machine that was built in Switzerland that would convert the sawdust into logs, fireplace logs. And bought the machine, got some investors, built the factory, and started trying to make logs. And I say trying to make logs because the teething process was a little bit more difficult than he had anticipated. For a while, all they were doing was turning sawdust into sawdust and money into sawdust. And after several months, they finally started getting product, but by that time, he had exhausted most of the reserve money that he had. At that time, I had finished college and started career in industrial management. And in order to keep that going, I volunteered to quit my job, move back home, and take over as the boss's son and the plant manager. So that went on for a while. The road to success is usually paved with rocks. The first boulder we came on was one night at 3 a.m. I got a phone call. And the shift supervisor came in and said, there's a fire up at the factory. And I said, okay. Grabbed the hose, threw it in my pickup truck, drove up to the factory. When I got there, I discovered that it wasn't just like a brush fire. The warehouse was burning. And it was quite progressed. We didn't make fireplace logs. If you store fireplace logs, they go up quickly. It's small comfort that I actually got there with the fire department, who dutifully put out the fire. And I started inquiring. There's 2 people on a shift. There's a supervisor and a packer. And the supervisor had relieved the packer. The packer had gone outside to have smoke, came back in, the supervisor went out to have smoke, and saw the building on fire. So I asked the packer, "Did you see the fire?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Why didn't you report it?" He said, "I thought you were trying to get rid of an old building." At 3 in the morning? So that lost us about a year's worth of inventory. Fortunately, the tornadoes were not caused by stupidity. Our town was hit with three tornadoes, one of which went through the high school, down our street, across the downtown, and caused a lot of damage. So much damage that I volunteered our then idle factory as a morgue. Figured there'd be lots of deaths dead people to deal with. Turns out there was only 6 people who died. One was killed by tornado debris. Another 5 were in a minibus and got blown off a bridge and drowned. They're just coming back from the Jesus convention. So I spent the next year rebuilding my family's house, and while my dad was trying to revive the log business. So we got we got fits and starts on that. And after a while, it became quite clear that it wasn't going to be a go of it. There was the main reason we had the fire, the tornado. But the main reason why it wasn't going to happen was my father was the only factory owner in the United States making these logs that had to make a profit. Everybody else was just trying to get sawdust. So they would sell the product at low cost just to get rid of their sawdust. We couldn't sell at low cost because we were trying to make a profit. And RCA also was switching from components, from consoles, those big furniture type consoles. The market was moving toward components you put on a shelf. So after the factory closed, the log factory closed, my father wanted to start a business. And he turned toward me to provide my cheap labor and expertise. And I find myself one day feeling a little bit depressed. I was lonely and not doing very well. And I was sitting down at that factory, not doing anything, but I was sitting on the forklift. The seat was comfortable, and I didn't turn it on. So it was quiet, comfortable. So I thought for a while. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I knew that I didn't want to do or be what I was. I didn't want to live in a small town working for my father. Especially since although my father was very bright, creative, and a really hard worker, he was not a good businessman. So I sat there and I thought, what do I want? Well, what I decided was I needed stimulation, more stimulation than I was getting as working in a factory, even as a manager in a small town. And to have interesting people to talk to, and also some young women who would be interesting to talk to at the moment I was still married. So the last time I had satisfied those conditions was when I went to school. College. And I thought, well, I need a career. I need something where I'm going to have more access to people. So I took three of the aptitude tests that are available. One that I did best in was graduate school. I say I was adapted to graduate school. And of my five sisters, 2 of them had genital glaucoma. Excuse me. And they lost their sight over the course for several years. But they went to normal schools. They through graduate school. My one sister is an attorney. The other is now a high-placed executive in the Social Security Administration. And I thought that my life experience gave some knowledge about rehabilitation. There was a master's of rehabilitation psychology available at Purdue Extension in Minneapolis, and I applied. It took me I moved to Indianapolis. I went through the school, got an internship at the end of my studies, the last thing I did. The people who were running the internship said, we're going to hire you full time. However, condition is you need to apply to PhD program. So I applied to PhD programs. I found one at Specialized in Rehabilitation, and I applied. They accepted me, and I got married and moved to Houston, Texas. So what I'm taking from this is I really needed to grow up. I was in my mid-20s, but I was still thinking myself as a member of my nuclear, my parents' family, and not really thinking myself as a regular adult. And getting my father's approval wasn't going to happen. Having a thriving family business wasn't going to happen. So figured that I'd better leave. I thought I would be indispensable, and my father would just couldn't handle it without me. Shows you how conceited I was. He of course did fine. He had to pay minimum wage to his workers, but at least he had workers. He built solar houses, was a contractor, built rental units, became a landlord, and all in all, he survived. He didn't become rich, but he survived. So in addition to having my own epiphany about how I needed to be an adult, I also realized that you can't save someone by throwing them a life preserver if you're in the water too. Later in life, I could help my mother. I married a wonderful woman, 45 years, 3 wonderful children, 3 wonderful spouses of my children. They are all decent human beings, and we are consistent in our politics. Nobody voted Trump, so we have a happy Thanksgiving. We don't have to argue. So don't throw somebody a life preserver until you're sure you're on dry land. That's pretty much my moral from this. And I don't know if I made less than 5 minutes, but I'm going to collect my winning in a minute.
That was great, Dave. Thank you. So
I'm
Stephanie Grathwohl, and my awakening, self-discovery, transformation is how I spent a lovely September afternoon. So this is the result of a FOOSH. F-O-O-S-H. It's a medical abbreviation that means fall on an outstretched hand. Some of you have probably experienced this. It's a very common injury. My short story is that I was wrangling a garden hose, but instead it wrangled me. The truth is that I was, or so I thought, carefully guiding a 50-foot garden hose from the faucet over to my back steps so I could rinse something in my wheelbarrow. Because the north side of my house is narrow, maybe just 3 feet wide, I was standing in my neighbor's driveway. There's a lot of big cracks in that driveway, so I had to be mindful not just of what I was doing, but where I was standing. That proved to be a little too much. I went to step up out of the driveway. I missed the step, and I fell. My recollection is that I pitched forward, turned to the left, hit the back of my head on the siding of the house, and ended up on my back. So I'm laying there. I was so stunned I didn't even swear. I'm feeling very foolish and very humbled. So I'm taking inventory and I'm thinking, okay, what's plan A? Well, I sat up. I was right across from my neighbor's open dining room window. So I started calling their names. Hey, Rocky. Hey, Tracy. Rocky. Tracy. No answer. So I figured, okay, they're in the front room watching TV. TV's always on. So, okay, plan B. I thought, I'll get to the back steps and I'll pull myself up. This was after I sat up and I looked at my left hand and arm, and it looked weird and funny and not in a good way. Plus, it hurt a little bit. So plan B was to scooch about 12 feet to a larger patch of grass, which was by my back steps, somehow roll over onto my right side and pull myself up. Well, that took me about 20 minutes, and that wasn't going to happen. So plan C, and my son's looking at me thinking, oh my God. So plan C was to start yelling, help, 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 for about 20 minutes, just to see what would happen. I mean, it's a lovely September 28th, right? We had a very nice, albeit dry, fall. So after about 20 minutes, somebody said, where are you? And I said, it's Stephanie. And a couple minutes later, my neighbor, kitty corner from me, Mark and his sister come walking up the neighbor's driveway. And I just felt horrible. I mean, they had just lost a brother to a 20-plus year illness. And here they are rescuing me. So right away, after they saw that I was talking and making sense, and, I wasn't broken completely in two, they said, okay, we're going to call 911. I said, no. That's not really necessary. Well, they were right. So the ambulance shows up and at the end of my driveway. So that's when all the neighbors come out and say, what's going on? It was a quiet, sunny Saturday afternoon in Parchment. Well, 3 people got me up, got me onto the stretcher, rolled me down that broken, cracked driveway, had a nice, albeit very short, ambulance ride to Borges Hospital with all kinds of things going on, asking me questions and an EKG and blood pressure, and I must have been okay. I was making sense. So one of the advantages of having an ambulance ride to a hospital is that you go right into an emergency room. So maybe that was worth the $950. I don't know. So the short story is that I was in and out in about 4 hours. In the meantime, I interfaced with an RN, a doctor, several aides, an office person, and I didn't have anything to read, so I had some time to reflect. And I was reflecting on lessons learned and relearned. I'll let you guess what those might be. I've been on this earth almost 74 years, and it's not the first time I fell. The rest of the story is that 2 techs came in to put what they called a splint. It's really a fiberglass cast onto my arm. And I'll be kind. I won't repeat what I said in one of my very few Google reviews. They did not know what they were doing. So after some time, a 3rd tech came in, and got me into the fiberglass cast from the tips of my fingers darn near all the way to my armpit. So the advantage of fiberglass is that it dries a lot sooner than plaster, and of course, it's much lighter. So I was thankful for that. Now, the follow-up is that I went 9 days later to the orthopedic surgeon, and he said, "Hey, let's do surgery tomorrow." I said, "Sure, let's do surgery tomorrow." I wanted to get rid of that thing that was disturbing my sleep and make it impossible to get dressed. That's another story, having neighbors help me get dressed. So did the surgery. I was in and out, showed up at 10 a.m. I was out by 2. Everybody was great. I highly recommend Borges Orthopedic Surgery, although please don't do anything that requires that. The best thing, though, I have to say about the surgery was that the anesthesiologist, with my surgeon's recommendation, gave me nerve block right before the surgery, which mitigated the pain that was going to be part of my after effects for like 24 hours. That stuff was great. I don't really want to know what kind of drug it was, but it really worked. So then I had a couple of follow-up appointments with the orthopedic surgeon. I have new accessories. I have a metal plate and 6 screws. So now I'm screwed on both sides of my body. That's about it. Like I said, lessons learned and relearned. Thank you.
Well, I guess I thought I was third, and I think I was supposed to be fourth up here, so we are a little different from what the order of service says. My name is Ron Kroll, and we all know that Kamala Harris graduated from Howard University, if you can remember back that far. Howard is considered the Harvard of the HBCUs. HBCU stands for the Historically Black College and Universities. Most people are aware that there are few black colleges, but mostly because of the quality of their football teams. Actually, there are 34 historically black colleges. in the United States. And they kind of make a C in the geography from New York City through Ohio down to New Orleans. So there are 34 of them. I have visited and interacted with the faculty in quite a few of these black colleges. My story is about these schools and the important and lasting impact they had on me and why. In the mid-'80s, the Mott Foundation funded the HBCUs to the tune of $20 million. The Mott Foundation in Flint, Michigan was founded by Charles Stewart Mott, the inventor of the automobile transmission, and he became a partner in General Motors for many years and was the largest stockholder in General Motors for many, many years, so he had a lot of money. The Evaluation Center at WMU was awarded the contract to evaluate the program. That is, they were questioned, how did it work, and did the money have any impact at all? I was assigned the role of a site visitor for these colleges. In that role, I chose colleges, several of them, to visit. I didn't go alone. I always was accompanied by an ex-president of a black college who made the entree for me. But I asked the questions. And then I spent time in many classrooms watching what's going on. Our visits consisted of reviewing the grant activity, as I said, and getting in classrooms, looking at the current work and meeting with the board and the president, mostly over a meal, which is a whole other story. Each college or university was unique, of course, but most had some things in common. Most of them had teacher education programs, which I came from, and most of them were co-ed, although a few were for women only. As far as I could tell from my inquiries, they all had great spirit and a few outstanding programs and a lot of great teachers by which they distinguished themselves. So here's the impact of these visits I had on me. I'd been teaching at Western for several years, but I came into higher education with very little background to prepare me. My folks did not graduate from high school, and I know my dad thought I was nuts for working on a doctorate instead of working in a real job, which is probably true. I came to Western not knowing what higher education was all about, or even though what I was going to school at Michigan State, I really still didn't quite understand, except I was having to study a particular thing that I loved. The experience with the HBCUs gave me many new insights about higher ed. I realized that my job was part of a much larger venture, and it did transform my whole view of my job and my teaching. I know I was a lot better teacher from my visits to the HBCUs. Thanks.
All right, I'm Nancy Kelmy, and Mary came to me and said, you know, I'm doing this Moth Radio Hour, and do you have stories of transformation? And I had to think about that for a while. But I think sometimes our circumstances and perspective can be abruptly and dramatically altered by a course of events, a crisis, and we're forever changed, and this happened to me. It was around 2003, and I was at the top of my game professionally. We developed a system in IT, and I had a great group of people that were working in several states and different countries. We developed a system that was taking off like wildfire across Pharmacia, the company I worked for. We'd taken a lot of risks and succeeded. And I took pride in my ability to develop my staff and help them work together and achieve great things. I was getting to be really good at leading, and I loved that role. And then the first life-altering event happened. Our company was swallowed up by a bigger fish. Pfizer was now the owner of Pharmacia and in control. Their IT management looked over what we had and was astonished and impressed. I felt really good about that. They wanted me to explain it and give presentations to the New York office about how it made it all work. And then they ordered me to dismantle it and let everyone go. I was heartbroken. We all had to make our own tough decisions about whether to find new jobs or retire or just hang on until the work snuffed out completely. My choice was to take a similar Pfizer position leading a team in New Jersey. And although it came with a big raise and a promotion, it engulfed me in a vastly different corporate culture that clashed with my values. I held on to every shred of optimism that I could muster, and I spent a year trying to recreate that sweet team environment that I nurtured so successfully in Michigan. It was an uphill battle, and I was knocked down more than I triumphed. I sent a lot of emails, made a lot of sobbing phone calls to my husband. He said, "Oh, hang in there, you can do it, you can do it." But I did make some progress. The glimmers of hope came when I saw previously overlooked people on the staff begin to shine and grow. Then I got an opportunity to take my skills to Ireland, where my husband was working on a project that he was really enjoying it. I was thrilled to escape to a more positive environment. Unfortunately, the leadership of the project was abruptly changed, and as I came to know my new boss, I discovered he did not share my values or my views on leadership, or teamwork, or respect for his team members, and he was playing a game with an entirely different set of rules. I found that my new role had me sinking deep into a sea of endless emails and customer complaints, and that I could not keep my head above water. Not only did my boss not share my goals and values, but he got increasingly frustrated with me. I'd never experienced that before. I was miserable and I felt like a failure. I found myself literally praying for a way out. That is when my second life-altering event struck. Over Christmas, in our second year, Joe and I escaped back to Michigan for a week. I developed a sore throat and had a swollen tonsil, and so we sought out a doctor to take a look at it. And within a week, I was diagnosed with lymphoma, an aggressive case. Overnight, everything changed. The job to which I've been giving my all and fighting tooth and nail to succeed in suddenly dropped to a very low profile. I spent the next 5 months living here in Kalamazoo, undergoing chemotherapy. I was firmly instructed by the company's HR department in New York City that I was to keep out of communication with all my colleagues and my boss, and I was confused and I was hurt. But it was as though this wild whirlpool of craziness suddenly just slid downstream, and I entered a slow-moving calm, focusing only on my own health. As frightening and depressing as that period of my life was, I believe it was a great gift. I was released from all the demands and constraints that had weighed on me and was shocked to see that there was life on the other side. I felt like I'd been such a fool to have allowed others to control my life and set all the rules. I began to think through what I really wanted and how I might make my life and my job work for me rather than the other way around. After being declared cancer-free, not to mention hair-free, I found myself uncharacteristically assertive. I insisted to my boss, once I was allowed to speak to him again, that I was going to return to Kalamazoo and take a lower key role. He fought me for a while, but finally acquiesced, and within a couple years, all the pieces fell into place so that Joe and I both retired and began planning the farm life that we live today. Without those two big jolts to my life, I may have spent the last 15 years hanging on to the same assumptions and constraints that I had always taken for granted. I would have missed the opportunity to experience life outside of Michigan, not to mention outside the United States, and I would have missed out on some big life lessons. I would probably have acquired less wisdom, retained a smaller perspective, and my life would look much different than it does today. I'm very grateful.
Good morning, UU friends. I am David Sanokal, and I thank you, Mary, for asking me to participate today. If music be the food of love, play on. Who wrote that? Right. From what play? Don't feel bad. I had to look it up myself, and I've done the play 15 years ago. Twelfth Night. Yeah. Duke Orsini is the character that said those lines. Okay. One of the constant loves in my life is music. During my long life, I turn 84 2 days from now. I have listened to, sung, and performed in many genres of music from the age of 9. These include religious music, especially Gregorian chant, oratorio, medieval drama, musical theater, excuse me, opera, opera, art songs, the American Songbook, country music, and jazz. I've sung in choirs and choruses and concerts and on the recital platform as an ensemble member and soloist. I was especially fortunate to have studied voice with 3 superb teachers consecutively from 1979 to 2012. They had all been or were professional singers in opera and musical theater in this country and abroad. I am enormously grateful to them for their experience, expertise, and encouragement. 2 of them became my cherished friends until their deaths in 2012 and 2019. I will end this resume by saying that no other endeavor in my life, including my 35-year career as a librarian, contributed more to my personal growth than music. It became my consuming passion, especially after I began to perform in musical theater near the end of my 30s. I couldn't get enough of it. I can proudly say whatever modest talents I possess, that of music is the one I cultivated and nurtured to the utmost. I can also say that sometimes I was reminded that humility can be a stern taskmaster. There is always someone more talented and gifted than you from whom you can learn and perhaps adopt as a role model or mentor. Abrupt switch. The election of November 5th left me shocked, dismayed, and angry. The shock and dismay have subsided somewhat, but the anger remains. I don't often express anger openly, so I feel burdened with how to channel or to dispel it. I've been harking back to the UU 8 principles as a reminder of my commitment to their practice and deriving what solace and guidance I can find from the tenets of the philosophy of Stoicism, of which I have been a student for some time now. I hope that embarking on this yellow brick road for and beyond the next 4 years will end up not in an Oz-like fantasy land with its fake and fabulating wizard, but somewhere over the rainbow where peace and harmony and reason may be restored. So once again, I turn to the solace and healing of music. I'm still singing in 2 vocal groups, the Kalamazoo Male Chorus and Blendings Vocal Ensemble. We start rehearsing Christmas music in September to prepare for our respective concerts in December. As you can probably guess, the Christmas story doesn't resonate with me in the ways that it did when I was a practicing Christian. But the message that it delivers of peace on earth, goodwill to all people, can always mean something important and inspiring to our fellow human beings of any or no religious persuasion. This season, 2 of the songs my groups are performing speak eloquently to me. The first, The Work of Christmas, set to a poem by Howard Thurman, will be on the program of the Kalamazoo Male Chorus. Thurman was a Black author, philosopher, and theologian, a mystic and a mentor to Martin Luther King Jr. The words are as follows. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flock, the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among the people, to make music from the heart. And the second song from Blendings Vocal Ensemble, which will close its concert on December 4th, is called Sing for Myself by a student-run a cappella group from the University of Chicago, Voices in Your Head. Out of the fallen trees we sing, sing like we're losing everything, lost and without a place to go. Sing for myself, it's all I know. Born to a brand new century, sing for our sisters patiently. Born to a day that's just begun, sing for our mothers and our sons. We sing for the voices never heard. Sing for the peace we've never won. Sing for the work that's still not done. And if on our darkest days we cry, sing till we put our fears aside. And if I feel myself begin to fold, sing for myself, it's all I know. Sing for myself, it's all I know. Recordings of these songs are readily available online if you'd like to hear the music. Otherwise, please consider attending the Kalamazoo Male Chorus Concert, Christmas in Kalamazoo, with the Kalamazoo Ringers at Centerpoint Church on 10th Street in Oshtemo on Tuesday, December 3rd at 7:30 p.m. The Blendings Vocal Ensemble concert will be presented at the First Baptist Church in downtown Kalamazoo, just north of Bronson Park, on Wednesday, December 4th at 7:30 p.m. Hearing music live is always the best option. I'd love to have you join us. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Did you ever have an aha moment? That's what I'm calling them. A moment that really changed the direction of your life. And I'm up here to tell you about the first one I had. It took a long time this week thinking back, because I'm getting up there now. It was really joyful to think back on it. This moment occurred during my second semester at Albany State Teachers College, which back in 1956, when I graduated from high school, was called a college. Now, of course, it's a university. When I graduated from high school, my goal was to be an English teacher. Now, how did that come about? There was never any mention at home about going to college, although I assumed I was since I was in the college prep class all through high school. Then somehow I think it was the guidance counselor that put me at Albany State, 350 miles north of where I lived. So anyway, I felt at that time that I had three choices. It was either secretary, nurse, or teacher. And since I had admired several of my teachers in high school, especially the English teacher, I thought, why not? English. I'll sign up for the English curriculum. So I did. Albany State was the only state school in New York State that trained high school teachers. All the rest were, turned out, elementary teachers and gym teachers. So after that first year, I wasn't happy. Oh, sure, maybe I'm too close. Thank you. After that first year, this path was not for me. I was already signed up for a biology class to meet a requirement the next term. And so after that, as a sophomore, I found that I'd really admired my biology professor. He was really great. I was really turned on to science. And then he and his wife asked me to babysit for their 5 children. Now listen, I was an only daughter and I had an only brother. Okay, I never changed a diaper in my life. That was quite an experience. But you know, I fell in love with their lifestyle. It was such a happy home. The children were great. The backyard was full of bird houses and bird feeders. There was a tent out there. They were campers. It was just a happy family. And I thought, that sounds like a lifestyle I'd like to live. So that was one of the reasons I chose science as a major. To start with, I was an outdoor kid, just like my brother and all the kids in my neighborhood. We had quite a group of kids, boys and girls. We played baseball together. My father put up a backstop, so that our ball would not go into Mrs. Trinkle's yard when the catcher didn't catch it. I could hit it like crazy, and I just loved it. It was confidence building. Other things we did, and you might partner up with some of these things that we did back then. We played a game all together at night now. This is just at twilight. Tap, tap the icebox. Have you ever played that one? Cops and robbers, and cap guns then were in vogue. So most of us had cap guns. That was really a good prop. We played cowboys and Indians. We searched for dimes, nickels, and quarters that Nat Hill would toss in front of his tractor as he plowed his spring garden. And we could keep anything that we found. That was a kind of a muddy game. We played tire tube tag, in which you threw a tire tube around the person you wanted to be it. And they threw it across myself, and instead of stopping, I kept running, and I fell and broke my arm. So that was my first broken arm. That was about age 7. Altogether, we dammed up the creek that was right next to my house. It was about 2 football field measures, 10 or 20 yards wide. So it was called a creek, but it could have kind of called a river, and it flowed into the Allegheny River, not far from my house. We dammed it up in order to try and swim in it. We never really got it deep enough. We skated on it in the wintertime. You went down with your shovel. You had to sit in the snow, put your skates on. And that was a big activity back then. When I was about 9 or 10, I would come home from school, and the first thing I'd do is get my long stick, a good sturdy stick, tie a string on it that reached from the top, from the bridge down to the creek, and put a safety pin on the end, and I would try to snag mullets. I wasn't the only kid standing up there at the railing. And we all fished, I don't know, went on for weeks, and nobody ever caught anything. We always had a garden at my house. My dad I think he should have been a farmer. He just loved the earth, and he fished. He was one of those people who resupplied fish to the streams around the area because he was a trout fisherman. My mother would save the brookies, the brownies, the rainbows in a refrigerator container until she had enough, and then we'd have friends and have big fish fry. I fished myself. Most of the summers we went to Canada, not northern, more like southern, to Lake La Pêche. And the kids, we went with another family, the 4 kids would sit in a rowboat. We'd go out ourselves. We were allowed to go out ourselves and fish. That's where I learned to put a worm on the hook. I really still can hardly do it, but you're forced to when your folks are in another boat fishing. So that was lots of fun. And I remember from the garden that we always had, my mom and I would pick green beans and sweet peas and sit on the back porch steps and shell the peas and talk. My mother was so busy all the time that I didn't get much time with her. And so that was really a precious moment. People would drive by our street. We lived at the corner of Brooklyn and Main, and they would honk and wave, and you'd say hello to anybody who walked by. It was a different world, really. And the freedom that we had was just terrific. My dad and I planted strawberries one year, and guess who crawled up and down the rows, cutting off all the blossoms so that the next year the strawberries would be very big, which they were. And I sold those on the corner of Brooklyn and South Main. A heaping basket, these big berries for 35 cents. And next, when we were finished with the strawberries, we went for corn, and I sold that. I really loved being with people. My dad would take me once a week to the fruit market in town. and he would talk to everybody in the place, and I would listen to all this, and it was the first time I ever ate red bananas. Did you ever have a red banana? They're sweet as ever. They're just so delicious. So one other thing, maybe two. I rode a horse for the first time when I was growing up at my friend's farm. And I want to tell you, never go to a horse that you don't know, unless the owner says don't do that, because this horse took off like a shot, and I'm just lucky I didn't fall off. So, and the next thing I'm going to just include, because I love my dad so much, he would say during this really hot part of the summer, he'd say, would you like to take your friends and go berry picking? Call them up and see if they want to go. So they'd all run down. They'd have a pot off the stove or a bucket or something, and we'd go to pick huckleberries. My dad had a 9-passenger car, which went along with his business. So we'd all pile in with our pots and pans and whatever, and 2 beagles. My dad raised beagles. They had to go too. And up we'd go, up to Deer Creek, where a farmer would burn off this hill so that the berries would be great the next year. And I'll tell you, huckleberries are about as big as a BB that you would put in a BB gun. So it takes a whole afternoon to get enough in your bucket or your pan. We'd take them home, and my mom canned them. And you know, back then, that was a dessert. She served her canned blueberries with bread and butter. There was kind of different. So with loving the outdoors and meeting my prof's family, I switched without asking anybody. I think I was about 19 at the time, to make my first real life-changing decision. I chose biological science. So after my sophomore year, my brother went to play football at Michigan State. My father said, you have to go there because we'll only make one trip to see you both. Well, of course, he didn't want to watch football or anything. So that's where I went. I didn't go willingly. I really loved where I was. But it was great because in the long run, I met my husband there. And Jim was just great. So anyway, when I transferred, I took all the ology courses I could. I just love it. Herpetology, entomology, ornithology, all of them. And it just turned me on. I was the only one in my dorm room that had to get up at 5:30 in the morning to go watch birds or to trap mammals. I still have a mammal at the Michigan State University Museum that I had to stuff. I learned how to stuff animals, and I have stuffed a fox, a red fox, when I was teaching high school biology at home in Portville, New York. So I graduated in 1960, and who spoke at my graduation? Harry Truman. So that was once in a lifetime thing to happen to me. I graduated in 60 and got my master's the next year, 1961. And let me tell you, in one of those summers, I worked for the Audubon Society at Gull Lake. And my friend Donna, she and I went through all these ology courses with mostly men, just the two of us. So we really buddied up, and we ran the day camp. The lady that donated this piano, I had her son, Bruce, as a student, well, as a camper, and I didn't find out till I met her here at this church when I joined. I've been here over 25 years, and I've loved every moment of it. So thanks for listening. And, I wanted to tell you, my son Robert in Encinitas, California is watching this, and my daughter at home is watching. Bob is in Encinitas on the beach. He's a surfer. He's a vice president of a school system that is public, but it's all computers and electronics, no pencils, no paper. And since he was autistic himself, not autistic, sorry, cancel that thought, dyslexic. He had a heck of a time all through school, and being a teacher, I'd never heard about dyslexia. Back in the 60s, 70s, and even though they've heard it now, there's still no change in the way they teach children. Check your newspaper this morning. There's some interesting fact about the education department, the federal education department, and who's been appointed to it. Thanks for listening. I love you all, and happy Thanksgiving.